This lecture is about sensation and perception. First, let me throw some terms out to you. That new car smell, grandma's apple pie, your ex's cologne or perfume. What do all these things have in common? Well, these are all sensations that have a meaning for you because you perceive them. That new car smell is actually a manufactured scent that evokes positive feelings in potential buyers. The smell of your grandma's apple pie may cause you to have wistful longings for comfort, or your ex's cologne or perfume may bring memories of happiness or revenge, and when you walk through the mall and you see it or you smell it, well, that's when the memories happen. So sensation and perception. Sensation and perception are critical to survive, and we have to separate all the different events that go on in our lives. And so sensation is a simple awareness that results from a stimulation of a sense organ. But perception is how we organize, identify, and then interpret that sensation. And we put it all into this nice little package, and our brain takes care of it. Around the 19th century, researchers started to develop psychophysics, which is an approach to studying perception, and it measures the strength of the stimulus and how sensitive that observer is to that stimulus. There's something called the absolute threshold, which is the smallest intensity needed to just barely detect that stimulus. And the just noticeable difference is the smallest change in that stimulus that can barely be detected. So think about this. Can you really see a candle flame about a mile away on a very clear night? Well, some scientists might say that you can, and some might say that you cannot. So try that sometime. Our sensations consist of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. For sight, we really explore the parts of the eye to see what it does for us. We work with light, we work with length, amplitude, frequency, brightness, color, saturation, all those things. And light, when it comes into our eye, it goes to the retina, and that retina links the world of light outside, and then we visually perceive something inside of our central nervous system. And once that perception is completed, we have different aspects of the stimulus that we focus on. Orientation, shape, color, size, etc. Those things have to be combined to have a single perception of an object. And that's really called the binding problem. And so the evidence suggests that all of these different things are involved in this process. And then once we see it, and our eyes and our brain process it, then we can perceive it. There are different views of representation of how we perceive and reorganize things in our world. At a minimum, humans show a great deal of perceptual consistency. What that means is even as aspects of sensory signals change, the perception remains consistent. So here's an example. I was sitting in the car with my son the other day, and I turned to him, and he's doing this. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm squishing your head." So he knew that if you closed your eye and you went like that, he could squish my head from his perception. But it was still my head was still the same size, still pretty big. So that's perceptual consistency. So even as things change, our perception can remain consistent. We are rarely led to believe that distant objects are actually tiny. So he knew the difference in that. Gestalt principles of perceptual grouping, such as simplicity, closure, continuity, show how things can be separated but then put back together. This is where all of those visual illusions might capitalize on our perceptions, like Chris Angel or David Copperfield, those magicians. This is where they focus on. So I'm going to show you some cards here, and let me know what you see. So you might see all of these dots moving, or do you see a continual black dot that's moving around? Okay, that's perception. What about this one? Kind of makes me cross-eyed. And this one, you see something in here? What about if I do it like that? So when you see these magic eye kinds of things, that's where you really have to focus on your perception. Once you see it, then you have to figure out what it means for you. So hearing takes place when the sound waves are transduced by receptors in our ear. And then we perceive the sound, and then it has different effects on sound waves and that kind of thing. When it comes to our touch, the other sense, and our grasping, we have to think about things like pressure, texture, pattern, vibration, the feeling. And touch is represented in our brains throughout different parts of our bodies. And so if our fingertip hits a hot stove, it transfers to our brain, and our brain knows it. Body position and movement are also regulated by these receptors located in your muscles, your joints, and your tendons. And this is really where your balance comes from, and it is related to your ear. So if you have inner ear problems, your balance might be off. If you drink alcohol, it affects your brain, and then your balance might be off. So all of this stuff is related. Smell and taste are both chemical senses, and smell occurs when the molecules enter the nose, and taste occurs when the molecules are dissolved into saliva. So that is related as well. Smell and taste can produce the experience of a flavor. So if you see someone with a glass of wine and they twirl it around and they look, then they smell, then they drink, all of those things come together to give that person a perception of how that wine may taste. If you've ever heard of pheromones, pheromones are something that are biochemical odorants that affect our behavior, including some sexual behavior and some physiology. This is why your dog always knows what you smell like, because they have very, very strong pheromones. Or if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, and they have a shirt that smells like them, that's part of those pheromones. So if we move on to the tongue, it's covered with all kinds of taste buds, and they cover things from salty, sweet, bitter, sour, all of those things that you can experience. So ask yourself, can you taste your food if your nose is stopped up? Well, probably not, because that odor comes in the nose, and then it's dissolved into saliva, and that's how you taste. So next time you're enjoying a piece of chocolate, or you're walking through the mall and you smell, oh, that smells like so-and-so, or oh, that smells like so-and-so. Remember how all of these different sensations are related and how you perceive them into making meaning about them. So enjoy your sensations and your perceptions.